Randall came home with another woman and a blue folder. That is the part my mind still goes back to. Not the affair first, not even the divorce papers, the blue folder. It was the same kind of folder we used at Monroe Contract Interiors when a client had to sign a final bid. Thick, glossy, too expensive for ordinary papers. Randall had always liked those folders because they made everything feel official. That night, he laid one beside my dinner plate like he was closing a sale. 4 hours earlier, he had texted me, "Can we eat at home tonight? Need to talk. No baby, no Denise, no love you. Just that." After 31 years of marriage, need to talk could mean a lot of things. The roof over the back porch, a tax question, one of our grown children needing money and trying to sneak it through their father first. So I did what I always did when something felt off. I cooked chicken stew instead of pot roast because I had already thawed the chicken, rice in the covered pot. Green beans with garlic, cornbread cooling in the skillet, nothing fancy. Just the kind of meal that had carried that house through school projects, late invoices, bad winters, and ordinary Tuesdays. Randall was supposed to be home by 6. At 6:49, I heard the garage door, then I heard heels. I turned down the burner, wiped my hands on a towel, and walked toward the dining room. Randall came in first, wearing his charcoal coat and that careful face he used before hard meetings. Valeria Cross walked behind him. I knew Valeria. Everybody at the company knew Valeria. She was our director of client development. 43, polished, sharp, always dressed like she had a camera waiting around the corner. She had been with us for almost 2 years, and she was good at her job. I will give her that. She could charm a room in 10 minutes and leave with 3 follow-up meetings. She had also stood next to me at the last holiday dinner and told me my necklace was beautiful. That is a strange thing about betrayal. Your mind saves the smallest receipt. Valeria took off her cream coat and laid it across the back of one of my dining chairs. Then she sat in my chair. Not any chair. Mine. I know how that sounds. A chair is wood and fabric. It does not have a deed. It does not have a nameplate. But I had sat there for more than 20 years. I had helped Elise with spelling words from that chair. I had listened to Bryce explain why algebra was unfair to the human spirit from that chair. I had paid bills there, wrapped gifts there, signed checks there, cut birthday cake there. Valeria knew where she was sitting, and Randall let her sit there. I stood in the doorway with the dish towel still in my hand. "Why is she here?" Randall pulled out the chair across from me. "Sit down, Denise." That tone, calm, tired, almost patient, like I was the one making the evening difficult. I looked at my chair, then at him. "I'm standing in my own dining room." "I think I can decide when to sit." Valeria glanced at him. It was quick, but I caught it. She wanted him to control the room. He opened his coat, took out the blue folder, and placed it beside my plate. "I filed this morning." I stared at the folder. "Filed what?" The question came out even though I already knew. Divorce. There are moments when your brain refuses to grab the largest thing in the room. Mine noticed the spoon in the green beans. It noticed a spot of gravy on Randall's cuff. It noticed Valeria's nail polish, bright red against the cream cushion of my chair. Anything except divorce. Finally, I pulled out the chair closest to me and sat. Not my chair. That one was taken. Randall pushed the folder closer. "I want us to handle this with maturity." I laughed once. I did not mean to. It just fell out of me. Valeria looked down at the table. Randall frowned. "Oh, what?" "You brought your girlfriend to my house to watch you hand me divorce papers." "Don't call her that." I looked at Valeria. "What should I call you?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. Randall leaned forward. "I'm tired of hiding." He said it like he had finally decided to be honest and wanted credit for it. "You're tired of hiding," I said. "How generous." His jaw moved. I opened the folder. Petition, notice, financial disclosure pages, a cover letter from his attorney, a few highlighted tabs where someone wanted my signature. I did not read every word. I read enough. Then Randall said very calmly, "You'll be out by Friday." I looked up. "Say that again." "You can stay with Camille for a while." "My sister?" "Just until we work out the house." I looked around the room. The curtains I had picked, the table my father had helped us move in before Elise was born. The wall where our grandchildren's school pictures hung crooked because one frame always slid to the left, no matter how many times I fixed it. You are telling me to leave my own house by Friday. I don't want this to get ugly. Valeria finally spoke. Her voice was soft. That almost made it worse. I can help you pack if that makes it easier. Then she smiled. Not a big smile. Not a villain smile. Just a little one. Like she was trying to look kind and winning at the same time. Something in my chest went cold. I folded the top page back down. Do Elise and Bryce know? Randall did not answer right away. That was the answer. You told our children before you told me. They're adults. When? This afternoon. I nodded slowly. What did you tell them? That we've been unhappy for years. Valeria looked at him then. I think that was the first time she realized she was not going to hear the clean version she had been promised. I looked back at the papers. There was an acknowledgement of service. That was all I needed to sign to show I had received the documents. Nothing about the house, nothing about the company, nothing about property. Randall tapped the signature line. Just sign where it's marked. I can read. I didn't say you couldn't. No, you just brought someone to watch me. Valeria shifted in my chair. I signed the acknowledgement and nothing else. Randall relaxed. He tried to hide it, but I saw his shoulders drop. That told me he thought I had surrendered. I picked up my pen, clicked it shut, and set it on top of the folder. Randall reached for his fork as if we were moving into dinner now. That was the part that almost made me laugh again. He had served me divorce papers and expected me to serve him chicken stew. The attorneys can handle the details, he said. The house, the accounts, your little role at Monroe. I went still. My little role? Don't make this a business fight. You just called my position little. Denise, you know what I mean. No, Randall, I think I don't. Valeria looked from him to me. For the first time that evening, the room became clear, not easy, clear. I leaned back. Did your lawyer tell you who owns the company? Randall stopped chewing. Valeria stopped smiling. 3 seconds of silence can be a very long time when everybody in the room knows someone has made a mistake. Randall swallowed. Don't start playing games. I'm not playing. You don't run Monroe. I looked at the blue folder. That is probably the first mistake your lawyer made. He stared at me. I did not explain. I could not explain without shaking, and I refused to shake in front of Valeria. So I stood, picked up my purse, and walked toward the front door. Randall called after me. Where are you going? I turned. You said I need to be out by Friday. I thought I'd start early. Valeria looked embarrassed then. Good. At least one person at that table still knew shame when it walked in the room. I got into my car and shut the door. Then my hands started shaking so badly I could not get the key into the ignition. The brass key hit the side of the slot once, twice, 3 times. I dropped it in my lap and stared at the garage door. 31 years, 2 children, 1 company, 1 house, hospital rooms, football games, church fish fries, bad vacations, good vacations. Ordinary mornings where Randall kissed the side of my head while reaching for coffee, and now divorce papers beside cooling rice. I do not know how long I sat there before my phone buzzed. It was Elise. Dad said you and him are separating. He said you both agreed it was time. Is that true? I read it twice. Then I understood what Randall had done before he came home. He had not just decided to leave me. He had started teaching everybody else how to explain it. In his story, I had agreed to the ending before I even knew the last chapter had started. I drove to my sister Camille's house because I could not think of another place where I could fall apart without making an appointment. Camille lived 15 minutes away in a little brick ranch she had refused to sell even after her kids begged her to downsize. She opened the door wearing purple house slippers and a sweatshirt from a family reunion 10 years earlier. She looked at my face. Who died? I handed her the blue folder. She opened it in the foyer, read the first page, read the second. Then she looked up. I am going to need a shovel. Camille. Fine. A lawyer. But I would enjoy the shovel more. I walked past her into the kitchen. "Do you have coffee?" "It's after 8. "Do you have coffee?" She pointed to the machine. 10 minutes later, I sat at her kitchen table with a mug I did not want, wearing a blanket she had thrown over my shoulders, though I was not cold. Camille had read enough to be furious. "Friday?" "Yes." "He told you to leave by Friday?" "Yes." "With that woman sitting there?" "Yes." "In your chair?" I looked at her. "How do you know about the chair?" "Girl, you have been talking about that chair since Bryce had braces." That was true. Camille pushed the folder away like it smelled bad. "Take everything." I rubbed the mug with both hands. "That's the problem." "What?" "They think everything already belongs to him." She frowned. "Randall knows better." "He used to." That was the part I could not stop turning over in my mind. Randall knew the ownership structure. He had signed every page 19 years earlier. He had sat across from my father and Miles Arroyo, our accountant, and complained about it before he signed. There was no secret trust, no hidden deed, no mystery envelope tucked in a safe. Randall knew, or he knew until pretending became more comfortable than remembering. Monroe Contract Interiors started with Randall. I will never take that away from him. He was 30 when he decided he was tired of selling office furniture for another company. He had 2 suits, a used sedan, and enough confidence for 3 men. I thought he was brave. I also thought he was foolish. Back then, those 2 things looked close enough to be romantic. He could sell anything. I mean anything. He remembered clients' children, favorite teams, old injuries, the names of receptionists, the kind of coffee a facilities manager drank. He could walk into a dental office to sell 6 waiting room chairs and come home with a full renovation contract. I handled invoices at our kitchen table after Elise went to bed, then payroll, then vendor calls, then scheduling, then collections, because Randall hated asking people for money after he had already made them like him. He used to say, "They'll pay, Denise." I would say, "The electric company has the same dream about us." For a long time, we were good together. That matters. I do not believe in turning a whole marriage into a crime scene just because the ending is ugly. Randall was not always cruel. Our marriage was not always a mistake. There were years when we laughed more than we fought, years when I trusted the sound of his car in the driveway. But about 9 years into the company, Randall pushed too fast. New warehouse, more staff, bigger credit line, 2 healthcare contracts that looked beautiful on paper and paid like they were allergic to mail. By the time we admitted how bad it was, Friday payroll felt like prayer. My father stepped in. Daddy had owned a small repair shop outside Dayton for almost 40 years. He was not rich in the way people imagine. He drove the same truck until the driver's seat leaned like it was tired of the road, but he had sold the shop and had money put away. He offered $240,000. Randall was relieved for maybe 5 minutes. Then Daddy explained the condition. The company would be recapitalized. I would receive majority ownership, 62% to me, 38% to Randall. Randall looked across Miles's conference table. "So you don't trust me?" Daddy folded his hands. "I like you, Randall." "That is not what I asked." "No, it isn't." I remember wanting to disappear under that table. I almost told Daddy no. I almost chose Randall's pride over our house, our children, and the money my father had earned with his hands for 40 years. Daddy saw it on my face. He said quietly, "Denise, don't confuse being married with being blind." The papers were signed. For years after that, Randall joked about it. At company cookouts, he would say, "Careful, my wife can fire me." When Miles needed a signature, Randall would say, "Ask the boss, I'm only here for decoration." People laughed. I laughed too. At first, Randall laughed with us. Somewhere along the way, he stopped laughing, and I pretended not to notice. That is one of the dangerous parts of a long marriage. Big changes do not always slam a door. Sometimes they sit beside you quietly until they become the furniture. By 9 the next morning, I was in Miles Arroyo's office with the blue folder on my lap. Miles had been our accountant since before Bryce could write his name. He had silver hair, calm eyes, and the annoying habit of letting silence do half his work. I placed the divorce papers on his desk. "I own 62%. Miles nodded. "Yes." I waited. He waited. "That's all? What were you hoping for?" "I don't know. Maybe a trumpet." He took off his glasses. "Denise, ownership gives you control of the company. It does not give you control of a divorce." That was not the speech I came for. "Can Randall force me out?" "Not from the company." "Can he force me to sell?" "Not simply because he wants to." "Can I fire him?" Miles sighed. That is where lawyers start sending invoices. I almost smiled, despite everything. He leaned forward. "You can remove him from an executive role if the governing documents allow it and if we follow process, but you need to think about the business. Randall owns 38%. He still brings revenue. He has client relationships. You have 39 employees, open projects, equipment leases, and completion penalties. If this becomes a street fight, the company bleeds." I looked out his window at a man in the parking lot trying to fold a cardboard box into a recycling bin. Life was going on everywhere else. That felt rude. "So 62% doesn't mean I win." Miles's face softened. "It means you have leverage. It does not mean you get a clean victory." I hated that sentence because I knew it was true. Then he opened a file. "There is something else." Of course there was. "Did you approve a future equity arrangement for Valeria Cross?" I stared at him. "No." He slid a printed email across the desk. I read it once, then again. It was from Randall to Valeria. Most of it was dressed up in business language: leadership transition, incentive alignment, future ownership opportunity. Then one sentence made my ears ring. "After the divorce is final and I have full control, we will formalize your stake in Monroe." I read it a third time. He promised her part of the company. That appears to be what he wanted her to believe. He cannot do that. No, not the way he wrote it. I looked down at the page. The house hurt. The affair hurt. The dinner hurt. But this was different. Randall had taken a life we built together and started passing out pieces like he had written the whole story alone. If you're listening from somewhere right now, write your city, state, or country in the comments, or tell me what time it is where you are. I always wonder where people are when they hear the exact moment a person realizes the room is not what it seemed. Monday morning at Monroe felt like someone had lowered the air in the building. Nobody said anything straight to my face. That was worse. 2 junior designers stopped talking when I walked past reception. Marla Jenkins, our office manager, gave me the kind of good morning people use at hospitals. I said good morning back and kept walking. Randall arrived 20 minutes later. He looked rested. That offended me more than it should have. Valeria arrived 10 minutes after him in a dark green suit, carrying coffee from the expensive place around the corner. She did not look at me. At 9:30, I was walking toward accounting when I heard Marla's voice. "Valeria, Denise has that conference room at 10. I slowed. Valeria stood in the doorway of the executive conference room with her laptop already plugged into the screen. Randall said I could use it. Marla did not smile. Randall doesn't manage the room calendar. No drama, no raised voice, just a fact. Valeria stared at her, then unplugged her laptop. I kept walking before either of them saw me. Was it petty that I enjoyed it? Yes. Was I spiritually advanced enough not to enjoy it? No. That little moment carried me for about 12 minutes. Then I went into Randall's office and closed the door. He was typing an email. "We need to talk about Valeria's equity." He did not look up. "Miles showed you." "Yes." "He shouldn't be forwarding private communication." "He should when you are promising away shares you do not control." Randall leaned back. "She brought in serious business last year." "That is not the question. She deserves skin in the game." I stared at him. "You cannot give away my skin." His eyes changed. "There it is." "There what is?" "Everything is yours." 62% is mine. That is math. No, Denise, this is what you do. You control operations, you control vendors, you control spending, you approve hires, you approve bids, you approve every decision that matters. Because somebody has to. The second I said it, I knew I had stepped on something old. Randall stood. I started this company. I know. Do you? What kind of question is that? The kind I should have asked 15 years ago. I felt anger come up fast. 19 years ago, this company almost missed payroll. Because we were growing. Because you were over-promising. I was selling. And who delivered what you sold? He looked away. I kept going because anger had my hands now. Who called vendors when we were late? Who worked through Christmas Eve fixing the Northview contract because you promised a delivery date that did not exist? Who begged the bank for 10 extra days? Who sat with payroll on Friday mornings while you told people everything was fine? Randall turned back to me. You hear yourself? That stopped me. He pointed toward the floor between us. I became a salesman in my own company. You are a salesman. No, I became your salesman. For 1 second I wanted to laugh because the sentence sounded absurd. Then I saw his face. The resentment was not new. It was not made for Valeria. It had been sitting there for years in smaller forms, in jokes that were not jokes, in sighs, in the way he stopped asking me before making plans, then got angry when I corrected the numbers. Randall sat down. Every time I made one bad call, you took something over. One bad call? You know what I mean. I did. That was the uncomfortable part. When Randall overspent, I took over the budget. When he hired a friend who did not work out, I insisted on senior hire approval. When he promised impossible deadlines, I made sales copy operations before final bids. Every single decision made sense. Stack enough sensible decisions together, and you can build a cage without hearing the door close. That did not excuse the affair. It did not excuse Valeria in my chair. It did not excuse telling our children a clean story before telling me the truth. But it made the story harder than I wanted it to be. I looked at him. You were unhappy. Yes. So, you slept with an employee. His face hardened. That is not what we are talking about. It is exactly what we are talking about. You do not get to turn resentment into permission. I left before I said something I could not take back. Valeria found me near the small elevator by accounting an hour later. Denise. I kept walking. Can I talk to you? I stopped. If this is about the conference room, Marla has no mercy, but she is fair. That caught her off guard. It's not. We went into the copy room because every other room was booked, and somehow standing beside toner boxes felt about right. Valeria closed the door. Randall told me you knew. Knew what? About us. About the marriage being over. I stared at her. He said it had been over for years. That sounds useful for him. He said you would not let him leave. I laughed. It was not a nice laugh. Would not let him? He said the company made it complicated. There it was. What did he tell you about the company? She crossed her arms. That your father had put shares in your name for protection. Protection. Estate planning, family structure. He said he had always run the business. I leaned against the counter. He told you my 62% was technical. Her face shifted. He said you were going to let him buy you out. I never said that. He said you did. For the first time since she entered my house, I saw something other than confidence on her face. Not guilt, not yet, more like arithmetic going badly. I said, you should check the things a married man tells you when every answer gives you exactly what you want. Her eyes narrowed. That isn't fair. No, it is not. I left her there with the printer warming up behind her. That afternoon, one of our largest clients called. Marcus Doyle had worked with us for 12 years. He did commercial medical offices, and his contracts kept half our design department busy. Denise, I wanted to ask about leadership on the Eastbrook project. I closed my office door. What did Randall tell you? Nothing firm. He mentioned changes, said there may be some transition in the next few weeks. I felt my hand tighten around the phone. Monroe is operating normally. The Eastbrook project stays with us, and I remain the executive contact. There was a pause. All right. I needed to hear that from you. When we hung up, I sat still for a moment. Randall had planted doubt where there had been none. At 5:30, I almost drove home out of habit. Then I remembered home had a blue folder on the table and another woman's coat on my chair. So I drove to meet Elise. She had chosen a coffee shop near her house. She was already sitting at a corner table when I walked in. No hug. That hurt more than I wanted it to. I sat across from her. She looked tired and angry, which is a hard thing to see on your child's face when you know some of it is aimed at you. Dad says you two have been unhappy for years. Your father is angry. That is not an answer. No. She took a breath. Do you own most of the company? Yes. How much? 62%. Her eyebrows lifted. Since when? Since you were 9. She sat back like I had pushed her. Are you serious? Yes. And Dad owns the rest? 38%. She looked toward the window. Outside, a young mother was trying to fold a stroller with one hand and hold a cup with the other. I wanted to help her. I wanted to do anything except answer my daughter. Elise turned back to me. So you let us clap for him? I knew what she meant. The Chamber of Commerce award, the supplier dinners, Monroe's 25th anniversary. Randall on stage saying he started with nothing but a dream and stubbornness. Me sitting at the front table, smiling. Yes, I said. Every time somebody said Dad built the company, you knew. Yes. And you let Bryce and me think it was just him. I looked at my hands. Yes. Why? I had answers. Randall was better at speeches. I hated attention. Ownership details were private. The company needed a public face. All true. None of them enough. Because your father needed to feel like he was carrying us. Elise's face softened for half a second. Then she asked, What did you need? I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. That question followed me all the way back to Camille's house. What did I need? Peace, stability, a working company, children who believed their father was strong, a marriage that did not become a daily argument, to be useful, to be needed. I had spent years being angry that people did not see me. Now I had to admit I had helped teach them where not to look. Tuesday morning, I stopped thinking about how to humiliate Randall. That sounds noble. It was not. I was just tired. There are only so many hours you can spend planning the perfect sentence before you remember 39 people expect paychecks on Friday. So I made a list on a yellow legal pad. Protect the company. Stop Randall from making promises he cannot keep. Find out what else I do not know. The third one bothered me most. I asked Miles to review recent company activity. I did not ask him to treat Randall like a criminal. I did not need to. We were entering a divorce with a closely held business. Looking carefully at the books was common sense. Still, I was afraid of a secret account, afraid of gifts charged to Monroe, afraid of hotel rooms and jewelry hidden inside expense reports, afraid that after 31 years I was about to learn my marriage had been paying for its own replacement. On Wednesday, Miles called. Can you come over? Is that accountant language for bad news? It is accountant language for do not make me explain this while you are driving. That sounds worse. Just come. When I got there, he had a stack of papers and a yellow pad covered in numbers. I sat down. How bad? Not as bad as you fear. That is not the same as good. No. He turned the first page toward me. There were meals that should not have been charged to Monroe. One hotel stay tied to a conference Valeria had not officially attended. Car service. A few gifts hidden under client development. Enough to make me angry. Not enough to be the disaster I had imagined. No diverted funds, Miles said. No secret company accounts. No large transfers. I sat back. Oh. He watched me. You sound disappointed. I'm relieved. That seems healthy. No, Miles. My husband brought his girlfriend to my dining room to serve me divorce papers, and I am relieved he did not also steal from me. That is where the bar is now. Miles put down his pen. You were married 31 years. You do not have to hate every molecule of him by Wednesday. It would be simpler. Hate is very efficient. I almost smiled. Then he turned another page. Unfortunately, Randall has found other ways to be reckless. There it was. 11 months earlier, Randall had pushed for an expansion tied to a regional clinic project. I remembered the arguments. He thought we were moving too slowly. I thought his revenue numbers looked like Hope wearing a necktie. We compromised, or I thought we did. What I did not know was that Randall had personally guaranteed part of the financing connected to the expansion. I stared at Miles. He signed a personal guarantee? Yes. Without telling me? Apparently. Why? Miles lifted one shoulder. The lender wanted comfort. Randall wanted the deal. The project was not failing. Not yet. But it was not producing the cash Randall had promised himself it would produce. Suddenly, part of his panic made sense. He was not only running toward Valeria, he was running away from a life where his salary, his reputation, and his marriage were all tied to a company he did not control, and he had sold Valeria a future where he was king of a house he did not own. I hated how close I came to feeling sorry for him. That evening, I met Elise and Bryce at Miller's Diner. We had been going there since they were little. The red vinyl booths were still there. The pie case was still too bright. The waitress still called everybody honey, even men in suits. Bryce drove in from Cincinnati and hugged me in the parking lot. Elise hugged me too this time. That helped. We ordered coffee. Bryce ordered pancakes because he had never respected meal categories. "You are 30, Elise said. "And free," Bryce said. "You are eating like a child. A child with a job." I laughed. It was the first normal sound I had made with my children all week. Then I told them the story. Not the ugly affair details. They did not need the color of Valeria's coat or the way she smiled in my chair. I told them about the company, their grandfather's money, the restructuring, 62 and 38, the expansion guarantee, the fact that Randall had told them one version before giving me any chance to speak. Bryce listened quietly. Finally he said, "So Dad really did start it?" "Yes." "And he brought in the early clients?" "Yes." "But Grandpa's money saved it?" "Yes." "And you owned most of it after that?" "Yes." He stirred syrup into his grits, which I chose not to comment on because the evening was already hard enough. Then why did everybody act like Dad was the owner? I looked at him. Because he acted like it. Bryce waited. Children know when you are giving half an answer, even when they are grown. I sighed. And because I let him. Elise looked down at her coffee. No one spoke for a while. For once, I did not rush to fill the silence and make everybody comfortable. The next morning, Randall and Valeria did that for me. I was walking past Randall's office when I heard their voices through the door. It was half closed. I should have kept moving. I did not. Valeria was not yelling. That made her easier to hear. "You told me it was yours." Randall said something low. "No," she said. "You run sales. You are important there. That is not the same thing." I stopped breathing for a second. Randall's voice came sharper. "I can make decisions." "Then why can't you give me what you promised?" I walked away before they saw me. But that sentence stayed with me. "You are important there. That is not the same thing." She meant the company. I started thinking about how many places that was true. Being important was not ownership. Being needed was not love. Keeping something running did not mean the people inside it valued you. Later that day, Miles called again. "If you are about to ask me to drive over there, I am charging mileage." "No need." His voice was different. "What happened?" "I heard from someone at Harbor Workspace Group." Harbor was one of our biggest competitors in Central Ohio. My first thought was obvious. Randall is looking for work. Likely. I closed my office door. For a moment, I was not angry. Our marriage was ending. His position at Monroe was uncertain. He had a right to think about his future. Then Miles said, "That is not the issue." I waited. He gave them a list of accounts he believes would move with him. My fingers tightened around the phone. "Monroe accounts?" "Yes." That changed everything. Randall was not just preparing in case he had to leave. He was planning to walk out carrying as much business as he could fit under his coat, while still collecting a Monroe salary, while still sitting in client meetings, while I was trying not to damage the company because I knew how important he was to it. The irony almost had shape. Miles asked, "Do you want to keep waiting?" 2 days earlier, I would have. Because removing Randall during a divorce could look personal, because clients might panic, because employees might choose sides, because some part of me was still trying to protect him from the consequences of his own choices. I looked at the account list Miles had forwarded. Then I thought of Elise saying, "You let us clap for him." I had spent years protecting the version of Randall other people saw. I could not protect this version from himself. "No," I said. "What do you want to do?" "We build a transition plan, and Randall can wait until we are ready." Miles wanted to move fast. I wanted to move carefully. Those are not always the same thing. For the next 2 days, we took Monroe apart one system at a time. Which clients dealt only with Randall? Which had real relationships with Troy Ramsey or Sonia Parker? Which proposals sat in Randall's inbox? What passwords did he have? What files could he download if he left angry? It felt cold reducing 28 years of working beside my husband to access levels, customer contacts, and legal notices. Every time guilt crept in, I looked at the client list. Randall had not made that list because his feelings were hurt. He made it because he intended to use Monroe while planning to wound Monroe. There was a difference. Friday morning we were ready. The meeting was set for 2. At 11:20, Randall walked into my office without knocking. Some habits survive even when the marriage does not. "You're calling a management meeting?" "Yes." "About me?" "Yes." He gave a short laugh. "At least you are not pretending anymore." "I have not had much room for pretending this week." "Miles says outside counsel is coming." "Yes." "So this is what we are doing." "What are we doing?" "You are using the company to punish me for leaving you." I knew that sentence was coming. It still made me angry. I opened the folder on my desk and slid one page toward him, the client list. Randall looked down. His face barely moved. That told me enough. "I am not removing you because you left me." "Removing me?" "I am removing you because you tried to leave with the customers." His eyes came up. "Those are my relationships. They are Monroe accounts. I brought them in. And a lot of people kept them here." He pushed the paper back. "You don't understand sales." "I understand clients are not furniture, Randall. You don't put them in the trunk when you leave." For half a second he smiled. "The real kind. The old kind." Then it vanished. "You think they will stay because you say so?" "No. I think they will stay if we keep doing good work. You have no idea how much of this company walks out with me. A week earlier, that might have scared me. Now it made me tired. Then we will find out." He stared at me as if he did not know where the answer had come from. For years, one of my jobs had been keeping Randall from feeling the full cost of his risks. Apparently, I had been doing that at home too. At 2, we met in the smaller executive conference room. No crowd, no security guard waiting outside, no dramatic stage. Just Miles, our outside attorney, Troy Ramsey, Sonia Parker, Randall, and me. Randall looked at Troy and Sonia. "They do not need to be here," I said. "They need to understand the transition." "There is no transition." Our attorney opened her folder. "There is." She explained it in dry language, which was probably best. Under the operating agreement and my controlling interest, Randall was being removed from his executive role as president effective immediately. His ownership interest remained separate and would be valued through the divorce and business process. He could either resign from management at once, or he could remain for a limited 30-day transition under strict rules. No private client solicitation. No outside employment talks using company information. No independent commitments on behalf of Monroe. No discussion of ownership with staff or clients without approval. Randall listened until she finished. Then he looked at me. "You planned all this?" "Yes." "How long?" "Since I found out you were shopping our clients to Harbor." His mouth tightened. I was protecting myself. Troy shifted in his chair. Randall noticed. What? Troy shook his head. Nothing. Say it. Troy had worked with us for 22 years. He was quiet, steady, and knew more about our long-term clients than any report ever could. He could sit through a whole meeting and say one sentence that changed the room. He looked at Randall. I do not think you want me to. Randall leaned back. This company would not exist without me. Nobody answered. That made him angrier. Half those clients would not know Monroe if I had not walked through their doors. Troy nodded. Some clients came because of you. Randall opened his hands like that proved the whole case. Troy continued. The company stayed because of Denise. Silence. Nobody looked at me. Thank God. If they had, I might have cried, and I was trying very hard not to waste good eyeliner in a management meeting. Randall stared at Troy. You believe that? Troy held his eyes. I've been here 22 years. That was all he said. He did not need another sentence. For decades, I had been so careful not to make Randall smaller that I had made myself disappear. Now somebody else had said the thing I had never allowed myself to say in public. Randall turned back to me. You always had to control everything. No. He laughed. Come on. I had to keep things running. Same difference. I almost argued. Then I stopped. Maybe that is what we told ourselves. That surprised him. I said, I did take things away from you. When you made a bad decision, I stepped in. When you made another one, I stepped in again. Eventually, I stopped asking whether you wanted me to. Miles looked at me like he was trying to understand where I was going. Randall did not speak. I can own that, I said. His expression softened a little. Then I said, but you being angry at me does not make what you did honorable. There it was, the part I had not known how to say. Responsibility was not the same thing as blame. Randall looked down at the table. After a while, he asked, You really think you can run this place without me? I did not answer fast. I have been running it with you for 28 years. He looked at me. The difference now is I will not have to pretend you were doing it alone. Nobody spoke after that. Randall first refused the transition agreement. He said he would resign immediately. Our attorney told him that was his right. Then reality started doing what reality always does when pride gets expensive. A few clients he thought would follow him had already spoken with Troy and Sonia. They were worried, but they were not eager to tear up contracts and start over. Randall needed income. The personal guarantee was still hanging over him. And Harbor, we later learned, was less excited about him once they realized the client list had come from a company he still served. He asked for 20 minutes alone with his lawyer. When he came back, he agreed to the transition. Limited client contact, no solicitation, defined duties, 30 days. It was not the ending Camille wanted. Camille had pictured security guards, a cardboard box, and Randall carrying one sad office plant through the parking lot. Real life gave us signatures instead. Valeria resigned the following Monday. She asked for 5 minutes before she left. We met in my office. She looked different without the armor she had worn in my dining room, less polished, more tired. I owe you an apology. Yes. That seemed to surprise her. She took a breath. What I said at your house about helping you pack, it was cruel. Yes. I should not have been there. No. She looked down. Randall told me you knew. He said the marriage was over. I know what he told you. He said you depended on him financially. That one landed hard. I did not let her see it. He said after the divorce, he would make sure you were taken care of. I almost laughed. Instead, I asked, and you believed him? Valeria met my eyes. I believed him because I wanted to. It was probably the most honest thing she had ever said to me. I nodded. You did not owe me a marriage, Valeria. Randall did. Relief touched her face too soon. But you did owe me basic decency in my own house. The relief disappeared. That's fair. She stood there for one awkward second. I did not help her. Then she left. I enjoyed watching her walk out. I wish I could tell you I had risen above that. I had not. Not yet. That evening I went home. Randall was packing. Cardboard boxes lined the hallway. Tape sat on the dining room table beside a black marker. He was wrapping framed photographs in towels because neither of us had thought to buy bubble wrap for the end of our marriage. For a moment, we were just two middle-aged people taking apart a life. Then he looked toward the dining room. Bringing Valeria here was cruel. Yes. I should not have done it. No. He looked at me. But that was not the worst part, was it? I took a moment. Somewhere along the way, you stopped seeing me as the person beside you. I became the person blocking you. Randall was quiet. Then he said, "You stopped seeing me too." A week earlier I would have fought that. Instead, I thought about it. Maybe I did. He nodded. There was nothing left to win in that conversation. An hour later, he carried the last box to his car. I stood in the kitchen while the front door closed. I had imagined that moment. I thought I might feel powerful, free, vindicated. Instead, I sat at the table and cried so hard I had to cover my face with both hands. Dignity does not erase grief. Being right does not make 31 years hurt less when they are packed into boxes and driven away. The first thing I learned after Randall moved out was that silence has a sound. In my house, it was the refrigerator. For 31 years, I had barely heard that refrigerator. After Randall left, I could hear it from the living room, the hallway, even my bedroom if the house was quiet enough. The second thing I learned was that winning is expensive. I mean that literally. The divorce took months. Randall's 38% did not vanish because he had behaved badly, and I never expected it to. There were valuations, negotiations, retirement accounts, the house, company debt, taxes, and more spreadsheets than any marriage should have at its funeral. I refinanced part of his buyout. For a while, I woke up around 3 a.m. doing payroll math in my head. 2 clients left. 1 senior salesperson followed Randall. The first time I heard, I shut my office door and said a word my father would not have liked. Then I opened the door and went back to work. Most clients stayed. That surprised Randall. If I am honest, it surprised me too. He had always been good at making people feel tied to him personally. What neither of us had fully understood was that the company had grown more than one route. Troy knew people. Sonia knew people. I knew people. Designers knew people. Install crews knew people. Apparently, a company could have more than one grown person in the room. Randall finished the 30-day transition and took a role with a smaller competitor, not Harbor. Harbor decided the client list issue made him a little too exciting for their taste. I did not celebrate. Camille celebrated enough for both of us. A few months later, she called me on a Saturday morning. "Are you sitting down?" "I am now." "Randall and Valeria broke up." I waited. She waited. Finally, she said, "That is it? What do you want?" "I have been saving this all morning. Would you like me to gasp?" "A little joy would not harm your recovery." So I gave her a dramatic gasp. Camille said, "You are impossible. Runs in the family." After we hung up, I sat with my coffee and waited to feel something big. Satisfaction, revenge, victory. There was a little. I am not going to lie and pretend I had become a saint, but mostly I felt tired of them. That was new. For months, Randall and Valeria had taken up some part of my mind every day. Then one week I realized I had not wondered what either of them was doing. That felt better than revenge. Things with Elise took longer. One Sunday afternoon, she came over while I was sorting kitchen cabinets. I had reached the divorce stage where a woman looks at 20 mismatched plastic lids and thinks, "At least I can fix this." Elise picked up a square lid. "This does not fit anything." "I know." "Then why do you own it?" "Emotional support." She tossed it into recycling. "Be brave." We worked for a while. Then she said, "Mom, I'm sorry." I knew what she meant. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do." She leaned against the counter. "I believed Dad too fast." "You believed the parent who talked first." "That is not very comforting." "No." She looked down. I should have asked you. I set the container in my hand on the counter. Next time someone tells you a story where they are completely innocent and the other person is completely difficult, ask a second question. Elise smiled. Just one? I'm trying to become less controlling. She laughed. So did I. That was as close as we came to a formal repair. It was enough. Bryce handled it differently. He called more often but talked around the divorce like it was furniture in a dark room. He asked about Monroe, complained about rent in Cincinnati, told me about his job, asked whether I had eaten. Then one night he said, almost casually, I think I assumed Dad owned the company because he talked about it like that. That is probably part of it. You didn't. No. Why? I thought about that. Because I thought the work should speak for itself. Bryce was quiet. Then he said, Sometimes you have to speak too, Mom. Leave it to your child to summarize 3 decades of therapy you have not paid for yet. At Monroe, I made changes, not the ones people expected. I did not put my name in giant letters on the building. I did not move into Randall's old office. I gave that office to Sonia because she needed the space and because I did not want to sit inside the ghost of his anger. I promoted Kendrick Wallace to operations director. He had been with us 9 years and knew how to tell me no without turning it into a war. That became one of my favorite qualities in a person. I started taking 2 Fridays off a month. The first Friday, I checked email 14 times before noon. The second Friday, 9. By the 4th month, I had lunch with Camille and left my phone in my purse for 42 minutes. Progress does not always look impressive from the outside. I had spent most of my adult life being proud that everybody needed me. If payroll had a problem, call Denise. If a vendor was angry, call Denise. If Randall promised something impossible, call Denise. If one of the children forgot a form, call Mom. Being necessary had felt a lot like being loved. It took me 52 years to notice those were not the same thing. One afternoon, I was walking through the warehouse when I heard Troy giving a new employee a tour. The young man asked, "Who started this place?" I slowed without meaning to. Troy said, "Randall and Denise Monroe." That was it. 4 words. Randall and Denise Monroe. A year earlier, I might have stopped. I might have added details. I might have carried those 4 words around all day like a medal. Instead, I kept walking, It felt good not to need anyone to know I had heard. By fall, Sunday dinners started happening at my house again, not every week. I had finally learned that feeding adult children was not a law, but often enough. One Sunday, Elise came with her husband and the kids. Bryce drove up from Cincinnati. Camille arrived with dinner rolls she had burned slightly and blamed on her oven. "My oven has hot spots," she said. "Your oven has been framed," I told her. My youngest grandson wanted to sit beside me, so people started moving chairs around. By the time we sat down, nothing was where it usually belonged. Elise looked toward the far end of the table. "Mom, isn't that your chair?" I followed her eyes. There it was. The same chair Valeria had sat in that Thursday night. Empty. For a second, I remembered the blue folder beside my plate. Randall chewing chicken like the evening was normal. Valeria saying she would help me pack. I had spent so much of my life thinking a place was something you protected. Your chair, your marriage, your job, your role in the family, like losing the position meant losing yourself. My grandson tugged my sleeve. "Grandma, sit here." So I picked up my plate and sat beside him. I can sit wherever I want. Nobody recognized this as a deep moment. Thank goodness. Camille asked for butter. Bryce complained about the rolls. My grandson stole a piece of chicken from my plate and denied it while chewing, and we ate dinner. Sometimes I still think about the question I asked Randall that first night. Did your lawyer tell you who owns the company? At the time, it felt like my strongest card. Financially, it mattered. Ownership gave me leverage. It protected something my father had worked his life to save. It stopped Randall from promising Valeria a future he had no right to give. But ownership was not what saved me. The harder part was learning the difference between being useful and being valued. between being needed and being loved, between keeping peace and being respected, between letting someone shine and making yourself disappear so he can. I do not regret 31 years of marriage, not all of it. There were good years, there were children, there were Christmas mornings and hospital rooms and arguments so silly we laughed about them later. Randall and I really did build something together. He was not a monster for 31 years just because he treated me badly at the end, and I was not a fool for loving him just because I stayed too long. We became two people who stopped telling the truth about what our marriage had become. Randall handled that by lying, cheating, and trying to take the story with him. I handled it by staying quiet for so long that my silence became part of the lie. The difference was that I could only change my part. For years, I thought having a place meant making sure nobody took my chair. I was wrong. I did not need the old seat back. I needed to remember I belonged at the table. If you have ever had to rebuild your life after realizing you made yourself smaller so someone else could feel larger, tell me what helped you stand back up. And if this story stayed with you, like and subscribe, because sometimes the real victory is not taking the chair back. It is knowing you can sit wherever you choose.